There once was a group of squirrels who lived in a beautiful grove of trees. They chased their dreams with independence, loving freedom as much as the summer breeze. Theirs was a proud and exceptional history, ensuring rights of religion, assembly, and speech. A government of the squirrels and by the squirrels, while limiting authoritative reach. They chased after nuts of their own choosing and grew into a prosperous squirrel nation, entitled only to liberty and unleashed by self-determination. To maintain law and protection, leaders were chosen every couple of years. Their duty was to uphold the founding principles, not to become social engineers. A collection of nuts was taken every spring to fund squirrel services and get things done. The more productive squirrels gave the most, while squirrels without much gave none. Deciding how the nuts were allocated came down to the elected few. But with each nut that was spent, the influence of these squirrels grew. Some nuts were put to good use, while other nuts were squandered. Finding new ways to get more nuts is something the elected often pondered. They solicited in the name of common good to every squirrel that had breath and found every occasion to take from them, be it income, sales, property, or death. Promising to take care of all squirrel needs, their power became uncanny. By having a hand in all squirrel decisions, they effectively became their nanny. More nuts were needed for their growing agenda. They claimed everyone should pay their fair share, and added more burden to squirrels paying the most, insisting they had plenty of nuts to spare. This made it difficult on the private squirrel sector, and instead of hiring squirrels, they hired less. Some stopped gathering nuts altogether, and the nut economy began to recess. But they continued to spin nuts without restraint, paying out far more than they took in. And to make up for the massive nut shortage, they simply passed the bill on to the next of kin. One nut was borrowed for every two spent, as the amount of debt became quite severe. Almost 15 trillion nuts and growing, more than all squirrels combined can collect in a year. But the massive nut debt was only the start. The elected few had made many obligations. They promised to provide for every squirrel need, like nuts for older squirrels and their medications. The cost of the promises grew out of control, and long-term projections revealed only despair. Over 100 trillion nuts owed and unaccounted for, squirrel entitlements were in need of repair. Fixing the problem would not be easy. Suggesting change is no popular position, especially when it affects a squirrel's nuts or who they choose for a physician. A brave squirrel was needed for the difficult task, not afraid to suffer a political blow. Attacks would come from opponents that benefit from the status quo. But to do nothing would cause unimaginable harm, with consequences hard to swallow, and guarantee a lower standard of living for every squirrel to follow. So with Squirrel Nation now hanging in the balance, we regret to conclude our story. A happy ending would provide gratification, but would compromise its allegory. For theirs is a frightful tale of insolvency, a squirrel nation poorly represented, an insatiable and overreaching governance, the kind the founding squirrels lamented. The choice between dependency and liberty the squirrels now have to make. Time is running out in the beautiful grove. Their beloved freedom is at stake.